Thank you very much. Thanks for all the tech help and for all the work you're doing volunteering. I know there's a lot of work that goes into these conferences, so thank you so much. So yeah,
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Horton. I'm a recent graduate from Brock's Bachelor of Applied Linguistics program. So I just finished my undergrad at Brock, and this is Michael. No need to introduce him. You know him already clearly. So we're going to move on to language teacher cognition and pronunciation instruction. So we had our, I guess I'll go back, 25-year research synthesis. So our research spanned over our 25 years of this type of research. So language teacher cognition. What is that? Right? You may have heard it before, but a very common definition is from Borg in 2003. What teachers think, know, and believe, and the relationships of these mental constructs to what teachers do in the language teaching classroom. So, how does this relate to pronunciation instruction in particular, right? So, historically, teachers struggle with pronunciation instruction, highlighted by Brett Kreutz and his colleagues in 2001. Additionally, teachers often report a lack of knowledge, skills, or feeling self-efficacy when it comes to teaching pronunciation effectively. In addition, understanding cognitions around pronunciation instruction is essential. It can allow us to design more effective teacher training that aligns with teachers' beliefs, knowledge, and classroom practices, ultimately supporting more confident and informed pronunciation teaching. So hopefully we'll have less people saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll hand this off to Michael for our research question.
thanks. So yeah, these are the research questions. What are language teachers' cognitions for pronunciation instruction? So when I say cognitions, I mean, what are teachers' beliefs, their knowledge, their attitudes? That's kind of a nice umbrella term. And then we looked at kind of teaching practices. So what are self-reported teaching practices? What are their observed teaching practices specific to pronunciation? And then the impact of a language teacher education intervention, be that a formal course, program, even professional development. How do these interventions impact teachers' beliefs, knowledge for pronunciation instruction? So this type of work is really booming, synthesis work, and I encourage you, if you're graduate students, to really get into this kind of work. I always make the joke, you're going to have to do the reading anyway. You might as well try to publish something from it. So you can do the readings, systematically organize the information, and then maybe get a publication out of it. So that's kind of the genesis of this topic. But if you see there's been two key reviews in the past on pronunciation instruction. So from Baker and Murphy in 2011, they had 8 studies, and then Murphy followed up with 17 studies in 2014. And just to give you an idea how much this research is just booming. So we did our search and we have 99 studies. And even just, once you stop searching, there's more studies just coming out. It's just a never ending thing, as Professor Mercer, I think, alluded to in her talk. So we build on these reviews and just had a wider range of studies and included some of the more recent studies that have come out in the last few years.
All right, so let's move on to our methodology for the study: search queries, criteria, strategies, and our data extraction. So our methodology begins with our manuscript search. So we went through academic databases like ERIC, LBA, dissertations, theses, conferences. So we conducted a comprehensive search across all these databases, and as well as some final searches on Google Scholar as well. So we use a combination of some key terms. As you saw, cognition has a lot of different factors within it. So we did language cognition, as well as beliefs, knowledge, combined with pronunciation as well, in addition to an ancestry search of some other those studies you saw just a moment ago: Baker, Murphy 2011, and Murphy 2014. So combining these strategies, we wanted to ensure that our synthesis was comprehensive and representative of the existing and rapidly growing field of research on teacher cognition with pronunciation instruction. So to screen our, we also had to screen our massive amount of studies based on some exclusion and inclusion criteria to ensure a well-done research synthesis expanded a bit more than a literature review. They have a bit of an overlap, as you can see upon our list. So we had 4 inclusion criteria as well as 4 exclusion criteria to go along with that. Must investigate cognitions, must be empirical as well in English, because we're English speakers, of course, and sufficient results for data analysis, as well as some similar exclusion criteria there on the right side of the screen for you. I'm not sure. So our search strategy was informed by Prisma. So to break that down, we start with identifying records. I'm not sure if you can read that number up there. 878 was our first number. Those were narrowed down after moving duplicates, doing some further screening, and then assessing the full text for eligibility, bring our number down to 99 articles to include in our synthesis. So that took a little while, but we got that number down to something a bit more manageable, but that really shows the amount of data we had for this here. So once we have those 99 studies, now what can we do? We must code and extract that data from it. So we broke it down into 5 main elements: study characteristics, terminology and focus, methodology and methods, participant information, and our results. So results are, was there intervention, was there not intervention, the pre and post intervention results, so cognition, self-reported practices, as well as observed practices. Next was our coding strategy. So Michael and I coded them alongside each other, and we would code them independently to solve any discrepancies. We meet up together, solve those discrepancies as well. It was also done in 2 sections here. So Michael did code the first set of search, but search 2 was done alongside each other as I joined the project a little bit later, but that's fine. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Results. What did we actually find in our study here? What were the context? What methodology did we find? And our data here. So we've come to study context and target languages. So the total of 99 studies were conducted mainly in foreign language contexts at 59. Second place is second language context, and plenty of studies, we had around 10, were actually conducted in both contexts as well. You see this next number here. The target language in 93 of our 99 studies was English. There was some other languages like Spanish, French, or Arabic, and 4 studies were actually conducted for multiple target languages. And then you'll see our heat map here. Makes it pretty obvious, our top locations being the USA, Canada, Japan coming in at 3rd. Some studies were actually conducted in multiple locations, for example, all across Europe, but what this really shows you here, especially with our heat map here, is that the majority of studies were conducted in foreign language contexts, but focused on English, which shows that there's a little bit of a limit on the research in other linguistics and regional settings. As you can see, a lot of gray in Africa, especially South America and Central America as well, India, and a little bit of Southeast Asia too. So there's a little bit of a lack of data from those locations. North America heavily represented, the Anglosphere with Australia as well. So there's a little bit of a limit there within our context. So let's take a look at the participants. So with 99 studies, there's over 9,000 participants throughout all these studies. And within these studies, there was a very wide range of how many participants. So we had case studies like Horton 2019 had the 1 participant, all the way up to Coachum in 2022 with 1,079 participants within that study. And within these studies, we have a mix of pre-service, in-service teachers. Some also covered both pre-service and in-service teachers. And then, of course, from that, pre-service teachers with 0 years of experience to, highly educated, 30 plus years of experience from some of those teachers as well. Coming into native English speaking teachers was actually a minority. So there was actually a majority of non-native English speaking teachers with common L1s like Spanish, Japanese, Chinese, Portuguese. So despite this large range of experience and BAs, pre-service teachers, teachers with MAs, specific pronunciation training was often limited. There was very few reports of teachers that thought that their language teacher education really prepared them to teach pronunciation. So there are various types of methodologies and methods within our 99 studies. We have our pie chart here, 45 qualitative and a little bit of a minority there of quantitative studies, and that's for a reason. So we had a lot of semi-structured interviews, questionnaires, reflective and narrative writing to capture the inner cognitions of these teachers, right? It's going to be very difficult to capture inner thoughts, beliefs, feelings of teachers without qualitative studies. So that is likely the reason for those interviews, questionnaires being on the top there and having our small representation of quantitative studies. All right, we're finally moving on to some of the real results from our teachers here. Some things that we really saw is that native speakerism is still very, very dominant in the space. Many teachers still prioritize native like accents or focus on accent reduction over the concept of intelligibility and having a focus on native speaker models. Some even had mixed views and questioned the importance of pronunciation at all. Many reported having very limited knowledge, relied on drills. Some teachers did have a good knowledge of segmentals, but super segmentals still, we had a little bit of a lack there. So leading to lower self-efficacy and uncertainty in their pronunciation teaching. And I'll pass up to Michael for the next part of our result.
Thank you. Yeah, so some of that's kind of depressing, but we'll talk about that at the end. The self-reported practices, this is a common methodology. And obviously we'd love more observations, but we'll show you next how limited those studies actually are. But the self-reported practices, a lot of the even self-reported ones were very controlled. So listen and repeat, minimal pairs, kind of the classic or traditional pronunciation methods. That's what teachers were most often reporting. There's a real range of frequency in how much they did it. And that's fair enough. We're looking at a synthesis that has so many different contexts, and some of them would do it all the time. Some of them would do it most of the time. Some of it was, never. So there's a big range there. And that one, the last one, 15 minutes or less per week. So it ain't getting much. More time was actually spent on segmentals. That was a common one. So super segmentals, thinking about intonation or pitch, things like that. Much more focused on segmental, just consonant and vowel sounds. That was the real focus that they self-reported. And the type and feedback frequency varied a bit as well. So some of it was very limited corrective feedback. Some of it, they did that more moderately. Sometimes they'd actually just have students audio record. So you wouldn't have to do it face-to-face in the classroom, just have them audio record and give the corrective feedback that way. And modeling and recasts were the most common types of feedback that they'd give. Observed practices. So there's 33 of 99 that include some form of observation. Many of these were kind of simulated observations as part of teacher education. So they'd be kind of doing micro teaching in front of their teacher education class. So that's a great way to do it. It helps us kind of in terms of research ethics and methodology, but that maybe takes away some of the validity, the ecological validity of it. So sometimes their observed teaching matched their cognition. So teachers would say, I believe this, or I can do this, and that would absolutely match their teaching performance. Sometimes it did not. And I think that's not too big of a ridiculous claim. You're going to see that type of range across studies maybe. Again, though, controlled activities were the most common compared to guided or free activities. Some included a large repertoire of techniques, thinking about marking sentences for intonation, board games, but again, a lot of the observed practices were, minimal pairs, bit, beat, sit, seat, things like that. And again, recasts were common in the observed practices as well as the corrective feedback method. So this is something we really want to see, the impact of language teacher education. So what kind of a difference can language teacher education make? 14 had some form of intervention. This ranged, like I said, from a specific pronunciation course, a language teacher education program, to short professional development interventions. It had lots of great impact in many different ways. So from Golombek and Jordan, this is a study about a teacher identity, and she was able to kind of reimagine her identity. And instead of just saying, oh, I'm just a non-native speaking teacher is what she had initially, kind of reframe that to be kind of a language expert and to develop that identity as a more confident pronunciation instructor. Some of it just needs to show the importance of it. So we might have differing opinions about how important pronunciation instruction is, but obviously someone like Michael Burry, who is a pronunciation instruction researcher, he thinks it's pretty important. I do too, to an extent. And so that was one key, that for teachers that didn't have much belief in pronunciation instruction, these interventions would at least instill some importance of that. More of a balanced approach. So that was actually a key thing. We said lots of teachers only do the segmentals, with the intervention pushing them to do super segmentals as well. Enhanced confidence, self-efficacy. So that was a key thing. We can enhance their self-efficacy for teaching pronunciation from the BUS study. And more positive perceptions of more complicated techniques, as I said, moving away from the traditional techniques. In terms of actual practice, there's limited data. Only 5 included the observed practice data. So more common, pronunciation instruction became more common and varied. Teachers, again, more confident. They at least appeared more confident when they're teaching. implementing new strategies that they learned. So for some of the limited studies they had, if they were taught an intervention or taught a technique, they could actually bring that into their teaching. But the development, nonlinear, complex, and often unique to the individual. So that was from Burry and Baker, but I think that can really apply to many of the studies across the board. How much time we got? A minute? We could. All right, we do. All right. Signs of progress. So let's go with the good news first. It's more well-known pronunciation instruction. Teachers have more knowledge. So it's really depressing looking at some of the early studies. So the Bright Recruits one that Sophie cited, there's really not much knowledge about it at all. So we're seeing some progress. It's a very established field. More techniques, more focus on teachers' identity and self-efficacy, and it can have a positive impact on teacher knowledge, language teacher education. Still work to do. This is very frustrating. So I was at the pronunciation conference last week in Montreal, and we were all lamenting how this is so common. Teachers saying the native speaker, I wanted to have the native speaker accent. Students still want it. And so we're not doing our jobs at getting the message out there. And it's very frustrating. We were all frustrated last week, but it's still something we need to work on. It's not about native speakerism. It's not about the native speaker accent. It's about intelligibility and comprehensibility. Self-efficacy is still an issue. I think you've heard me talk about that enough, but yeah, self-efficacy, it's important. Lack of institutional support, and that's a big one too. Lack of institutional support in supporting teachers, and even misconceptions about pronunciation instruction and even what it is. So kind of changing that idea that it's not accent reduction. It's not, changing your identity. It's just trying to have clear, intelligible, comprehensible speech.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. These next two slides aren't where I thought they would be. So anyway, we can just move on right to our implications. So what are we going to do? Let's address pronunciation instruction as a part of language teacher education. Our teachers shouldn't feel like they don't know what they're talking about in their classroom, right? Number two, let's get our message out a little bit more. Intelligibility versus that nativeness that people may want, but not necessarily what they need, right? We have a bit of a PR problem, pronunciation instruction isn't accent reduction. It doesn't need to be accent reduction. Another way we can improve, let's do more studies with some observations in there. There's a real gap there. So a lot of the existing research relies on those self-reports and interviews, which are needed, but adding that observational data can give us a clearer picture on how their beliefs and inner thoughts translate into their practice every day. And finally, factors like teacher self-efficacy. Their identity, being a native English speaker versus a non-native English speaking teacher, and their proficiency, it's key to supporting them and improving pronunciation instruction overall. So I hope supporting these teachers in their classrooms every day with pronunciation instructions. Here are my references. They're lower here. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that. Do you have any questions?